Two reports went viral after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. In Matthew chapter 28, it talks about the resurrection of Jesus, and we can see two groups mentioned. One group was the Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, and the second group was the guards who were assigned to watch the tomb. Now, both groups witnessed the same event. They both saw that Jesus had risen, and they were both in a similar emotional state filled with fear and wonder. But here is something important to notice. Even though both the woman and the guards were standing in fears, the angel only spoke to the woman, the one who came to see Jesus, and said, "Don't be afraid." And why didn't the angel say, "Don't be afraid" to the guards? Because the resurrection is a bad news for those who don't want to believe in him. If someone chooses not to believe in Jesus, there is no reason for the angel to comfort them with, "Don't be afraid." In fact, they should be afraid now, because their law or good works can no longer save them. Only the one they rejected can. The resurrection of Jesus is salvation for those who believe in him, but it also means death for those who don't. It's life for the believer, but it is a reminder of internal separation for those who reject him. Next, we see both parties on their way to report what happened. The woman went to Jesus' disciple, and the guards went to the leading priest. In verse 8, it says, "The woman ran quickly from the tomb. They were frightened but also filled with great joy." Joy of what? The joy of the resurrection, that he is risen, just as he said. Now he is alive, and there is someone to save us from eternal death, the one who paid the price for our sin. And Jesus had already told them, "Your grief will suddenly turn to joy." And in that moment, that promise was fulfilled. Now we can see the second group, the guards, who gave the same report to the leading priest. But this news wasn't good news for them, even though Jesus paid the price for their sin. Can you imagine? They were literally hating the one who paid their debt. If somebody paid all our debt, how could we still hate and reject that person? It is understandable for them to reject Jesus before, because in their eyes he was just a man. But now they know everything. They know Jesus said about himself is true. He resurrected from the dead and he is the living God. But instead of repenting for what they have done to him, they chose to continue living in hatred, refusing to believe, and they twist the truth by bribing the guards to tell lie and say that disciples stole Jesus' body. So in the people's eyes, he is not alive. If you are still doubting whether Jesus is truly risen, you see, that doubt began on the very day Jesus resurrected. This is what happened in the middle. They twisted the truth by giving a bribe. Unfortunately, that false report went viral. Not just among the Jews, but across the entire world. Maybe your ancestor believed that lie, that second report, and passed down to generation. And maybe you are that part of the generation still believing that second version of the story, that he is not risen. But I want to tell you, if you are in a place of confusion and really wondering if Jesus is still alive or he is truly God, just ask him to reveal himself to you. He will come to those who desperately seek him. But one important thing, God always looks at the heart posture. He values a childlike heart, a heart with no suspicion, no evil intention, just like a simple genuine hunger. Even if you don't believe in him yet, he can see your heart. We can see this in the Bible many times. People came to Jesus and asked him to show miracles, but their motives was just to test him, not to know him. And in those moments, Jesus didn't do any miracles at all, because he had nothing to prove to those who trying to trap or challenge him. But then in other places, Jesus did so many miracles and wonders, because people were truly hungry for him. Wherever there is hunger, there is miracle. We also see an example from the disciple. There was a disciple who didn't believe Jesus had resurrected, even though he had walked with Jesus and heard him say over and over that he would rise again. And still, he had disbelief. And he said, "Unless I see his pierced hand, I won't believe." And guess what? Jesus still came and showed his hand, because Jesus knew his disbelief wasn't out of rebellion, but out of confusion and hunger to know the truth. So just like that, God will reveal himself to you if you seek him. Jesus won't withhold himself from you if you're desperately seeking him or truly want to know him. He will reveal himself, but not always the way we expect, but the way God chooses. Every person has different encounter with God. My encounter with God may not be the same as yours. So we can't predict how God works in each individual's life. Some people come to know God out of desperate moment, when life has pushed them to the edge to the point where they don't want to live anymore. And maybe that's the moment God chooses to reveal himself to that person or that family. And in that vulnerable place, they come to realize that there is a Savior and his name is Jesus Christ. But it doesn't mean everyone has to hit the rock bottom to know him. Some of you might be like Mary Magdalene. All of heaven was waiting for those two women to visit the tomb. Jesus had already resurrected before they even arrived. But the stone wasn't moved until they came. The angel was waiting for them to move the stone just for them and to share the good news. God may be waiting for you to come to him and seek him so that he can move out that stone from your heart and share this good news of abundant life with you. You don't have to live in desperation. You don't have to end up your life. You can have the same joy that Mary Magdalene had after she heard the good news. The other thing is, after Jesus appeared to them, they immediately began to worship him. They came into the realization that Jesus is the true God. Nobody told them to worship Jesus, but they just knew in that moment that he is worthy of worship. And if you notice, Jesus never once said, "Worship me," but whoever comes into contact with him automatically worship him, because they receive the revelation of how glorious Jesus is, and he is truly worthy to receive all glory, honor, and power. Jesus is just a man for those who have never experienced him as God. We can't say whether it is sugar or salt without tasting it. The same way, we can't say Jesus is God unless we have tasted and experienced him. Those two women wouldn't have had that experience if they didn't go to the tomb early that morning. Because they chose to seek Jesus, they had a supernatural encounter with him, and they went back filled with great joy. Jesus is not a complicated topic. Yes, he is God, but he is not complicated. He loves simplicity. He is a God of simplicity. All he is looking for is a childlike heart, a heart that desperately wants to know him without any suspicion or resistance. And the joy of your salvation is your reward for seeking him. God bless you.